the innate drive for justice and respect. Now, I'm sure nobody here thinks that people don't care about justice or respect, but I want to give you some interesting research for you to appreciate how critical it is to get this one right, okay? I speak, then you speak. Never had a boss that was like that. Okay. And actually that makes me think about, I remember the VP of operations of this manufacturing company who brought me in because he was concerned that he was hired to improve efficiencies in their manufacturing plant and it wasn't happening. And he's like, what's wrong with my people? Like, they don't care about improving efficiencies, and we have way higher level of defect rate than they were bought out by a conglomerate, like our other plants. So I do this series of interviews with his various levels of managers, and it turns out they despise him because he's so rude and disrespectful. And so when I brought back to him some of the feedback that I'd heard, it was bought out by a French company. I'll never, he had like that great French accent. He goes, but what is this? My French accent's not so great. So he goes, but what is this? There's no talk about the efficiencies. What about the efficiencies? I'm like, dude, they hate you. That's why they're not thinking about the efficiencies. We gotta work on that part first. So let's talk about personal and professional. So ask yourself, and let's do this. I want to give you one more break because I know from learning theory, if you're listening too much to the person, you need to go offline. So just 2 minutes with your trusty triad or partner. What communicates respect? What communicates disrespect? So I want you to get the gears grinding. So think of places that you've worked. What are things that you've had bosses do that communicated respect, and what are the things that communicated disrespect? So just 2 minutes. And again, please be really crisp because I want to get the whole thing going. Okay, so I want to share with you a little bit of research that I really hope you take to heart because of the impact this can have on morale and engagement. So we're going to talk about the innate drive for justice. One of the things that's so fascinating to me is taking research that from one field and applying it to another. And this is actually research from the world of neuroeconomics. And basically neuroeconomics is the marriage of economic theory with neuroscience. So studying what goes on in the brain to try to understand why people do what they do related to money. And there's a neuroeconomics paradigm called the Ultimatum Game. And here's how it goes. So let's say Susan and I, no, actually, what's your name, Allison? So let's say Susan and Allison are the experimental subjects. And I give Allison 10 $1 bills, okay? Now, Allison's job is to give Susan as many of those $1 bills as she deems appropriate, okay? But here's the deal. If Allison is cheap, let's say she gives Susan only one, Susan can say, forget it, and then I take back all $10. You with me? Okay. Now, let's say Susan is cheap, Allison is cheap, and she gives Susan $1. If human beings were purely rational organisms, what would Susan do? She would take it and say thank you, because 1 is better than 0. Does that happen? Nope. You got it. The average is $3. If the people in Allison's position give 3 or less, the people in Susan's position say what they say, and then I get the money back. And what's interesting, when you apply the imaging, the brain scans, is they can see the rational part of the brain, the prefrontal lobe, lighting up, and then the emotional part of the brain, called the limbic system, lighting up. And they can see this dueling, this battle going on between rationality and emotionality. And when the emotionality wins, that's when the person says, forget it, even though it's in their best interest. In fact, some of the versions of the Ultimatum Game, people have actually given up the equivalent of a month's salary just to say, up yours. So think about that. Hold that thought, and we'll continue. Indifference, disrespect, and retribution. What you can learn from doctors who get sued and those who don't. This is really fascinating. So here's what they found. Doctors who get sued, doctors who don't, it's not about the skill level. It's about the emotional intelligence. It's about the bedside manner. And it's funny because one of the leaders of the study said, I have never had a person say, I love my doctor and I really hate suing them, but I have to. People don't sue doctors they love. In fact, I first learned about this research in Blaine, and it's funny because this attorney who specialized in malpractice said how she actually had a client come in, and the client wanted to sue one of the physicians involved in the case. And the attorney said, well, really, I think she wanted to sue, I think it was a radiologist. And the attorney said, well, it was really your primary care physician who screwed up. And she said, I don't care, I want to sue him. I love her, she's nice. This guy, you know. And here's where it is really interesting. Another set of scientists, what they did is when they first heard about this research, they took little audio clips, little 10-second snippets, four, count them, from 2 different conversations, and they filtered out the words. So you couldn't tell what the docs were saying, you could only hear voice tone. And they knew instantly, you're getting sued, you're not getting sued. And here's what they found. Attitude, not skill, is a determining factor. But they found the malpractice kiss of death was when the voice tone was one of dominance and lack of concern. Dominance and lack of concern. Now, those of you who have a psychology background, I used to be a therapist in my past life, so I'm all about that kind of stuff, that if you know about shame and rage, and how when people feel treated with indifference, oftentimes it triggers shame and then rage. And those of you involved in customer service, that's one of the reasons why we as customers get so riled up when we're treated with indifference by a customer service person. And so I share that with you because there's a huge price organizations pay if there's that version of malpractice kiss of death, dominance and lack of concern. And why I say that is there seems to be some evidence that the desire for payback is hardwired. And plotting revenge, you will not expect it. Don't you love the look in the eyes? I mean, it looks submissive, but... And those of you who know my spitting in the sandwich story, you know where I'm going with this. I didn't do it, by the way, those who don't know this. Donald Brown, famous anthropologist, could not find a single culture that did not value revenge and retaliation. So when people feel disrespected, unfortunately, it's innate. Now, it doesn't mean, well, actually, let me ask you this. I'll just pose it rhetorically. How do we express our upsetness with disrespect if we don't feel safe enough to verbalize it? Oh, okay, we won't make it. No, go for it. Yeah, you avoid the person. You avoid doing your job as well as you can. Don't go the extra mile. Don't offer ideas when you could offer ideas. Okay. Good. Passive aggressive. All the different ways of presenteeism shows up in the workplace. Okay, so implications. Power may bring immunity from feedback, but not reality. And those of you who want the audio and the slides, I will email you an audio clip about the spit in the sandwich story. Because it's a story I try to share with every man, and you can share it with your managers. It's a story I try to share with everybody in power because it makes you think twice. Okay, so you must create an environment that, in processes that foster honest open communication. If you want to get at the root of discontent, management must have the skills to make that possible. So that's justice and respect.